two or three, saying two are now gone because of.
I'd like to bring the meeting to order, if I may. I'd like to welcome the members of the public and the media and staff to the board meeting this morning. This morning we're going to do something a little different. We're going to start with a safety moment, and as you, I'm sure all are aware, safety is a critical component of Metrolinx and something that we care very deeply about. So as a result, we've started a process where before all of our committee meetings and board meetings we have a safety moment, and so we're going to do that again this morning. I'd like to introduce George Bell, our Vice President of Safety and Security, to walk us through a safety moment.
Thank you. Thank you. First, I'd like to start with a safety briefing. So we are at 97 Front Street on the 4th floor. If we hear an alarm, a slow alarm, we'll calmly wait for instructions. We'll shelter in place. If we hear a faster alarm, we'll exit the building down the main stairs and out across Front Street to the Royal York Hotel, on the west side of the Royal York. Our Chief Operating Officer, Greg Percy, will handle any first aid requirements we have. Chief Marketing Officer will fetch our AED and defibrillator for us if that's required. It's located in the kitchen, just outside and across the hall. We have Helen Furlbach, our Chief Human Resources Officer, who will phone 911 if required. And Annalise Cherney will, for our Executive Vice President from Presto, will meet our first responders at the door. One of our colleagues, Sean, from the security department, is taking a running head count so that if we need to evacuate, we'll know how many people were in the room and we'll be able to ensure that everyone makes it safely. And in order to help us do that, please look to your right and left, identify the person you're sitting beside, and we'll ask you later if we need to evacuate at the evacuation site to make sure that person is here with us. So thank you for that. We're going to ask for a safety moment from our executive team. These are, generally speaking, organizational personal learnings that have emerged in the last few days that have a safety message and safety learning for all of us. So I think Mark has volunteered to give us one this morning, so please step up.
Thank you, George, and thank you, everybody. I actually thought I would share two safety moments. One personally, because I'm a relatively new member of the team, and I would say this focus on safety has truly affected me in how I am day to day in my real life. And so just this past Friday, I was actually walking from Union Station TTC into Union Station itself with one of my colleagues. I was on her left, she was on the right. We were walking through the stairwell, and a hand reached in to seemingly, from my perception, take a wallet from her purse. I actually reacted spontaneously in a way that I don't think I would have done 3 months ago to actually disrupt what I believed was going on by a simple use of the word hey and pushing my hand to the right. There is a good news to this story, but it really made an impact on me. It actually happened to be her husband, who happened to just be in the same location. So I will tell you it was a good outcome. However, it really was a reminder of how safety and seeing something and then saying something is so incredibly critical. I will tell you she's ordered a new purse with a zipper on her husband's direction, who is actually an officer in the law courts. I did want to just mention one other thing. So over the last 2 months, we have been very actively sharing safety messaging with many of our colleagues in this room. In social media with our customers. If you've seen recently a What a Save video that's been running in social media, it is live CCTV footage which demonstrates a near miss saved by transit safety officers on the platform, one of our platforms. And that video has garnered an incredible amount of engagement from our customers online, around the 18% level, which is almost 3 times the height of what we would typically see. And then just yesterday, 2 women on a GO train arriving at Union Station, as they were leaving the train themselves, noticed somebody dropped a bag and left a bag behind them. And in the spirit of the campaign of see something, say something, these 2 women did in fact say something and raise the alarm. It did turn out to be a gym bag, but again, I think we're making an impact personally, and we're also making an impact as we raise this message consciousness with our customers. Thank you.
Great.
Okay, thank you, George and Mark. I'd like to begin the meeting by introducing myself. My name is Don Wright, and I'm happy to be here to serve as the new chair of Metrolinx. And I look forward to working with our CEO, Phil, and the rest of the board, and also the staff of Metrolinx. The first thing, and I have a great pleasure in doing this, on behalf of the board, I'd like to extend our deep appreciation to Rob Pritchard. As many of you know, he's made tremendous contributions, provided leadership and dedication during his time here at Metrolinx, which has been quite a long time. He was the CEO in the beginning, and then from 2010 has served as the chair of Metrolinx. Rob, can I ask you to stand and just be recognized? During Rob's tenure, he demonstrated a tireless commitment to deliver better transit for the people of Greater Toronto and the Hamilton area. I want to thank Rob for the years of service that you've committed to Metrolinx, and also for the great things that have been accomplished under your leadership here at Metrolinx. We wish you the best of success in the future, and moving forward, the next decade we'll probably experience a period of significant growth. It's essential to make transit more accessible and easier for people to be mobile across the entire region. Metrolinx plays an essential role in enhancing our current services with projects such as the Eglinton LRT, such as increased service to the Niagara region, and an increasing service on the GO network. We're investing billions of dollars over the next 10 years in transit to get people moving and to make our communities better places to live. Rob, you've played a key role in getting us to where we are, and we're going to take your leadership from the past and we're going to extend that into the future and try to make things more successful than they already have, building on what you've already achieved. So I want to thank you very much for all your hard work getting us to where we are, and we'd like to thank you again and again. It's really tremendous. Thank you. Now I want to hand it over to Phil, who has a few words to say, and this is not a roast, Rob.
So Rob, on behalf of the board of directors, as well as everyone at Metrolinx, and when I say everyone at Metrolinx, it is everyone. We want to thank you from the heart for the huge amount of dedication and hard work that you've contributed to Metrolinx. One of the things that amazed me in the very short time privilege I had to work with you is just how much of your intellectual time and your personal time and commitment you've put into something which is not a full-time role. It was as if you were full-time, and it was fantastic what you've done, especially in the period of where transit has gone through different phases of awareness with the communities that we serve, as well as with the shareholders we have, in terms of its relative importance, and your role to establish that as a permanent agenda point for our society in the GTHA cannot go unrecognized. We are indebted to you, and we are truly thankful for what you have done. Thank you very, very much.
Rob, it's a great pleasure for me at this point in time to present you with a small token of our appreciation for your service. This is a picture with a legend on the bottom that says, Robert S. Pritchard, for your great, generous, and selfless service to Metrolinx and our people.
Thank you very much.
one last thing as you leave the boardroom. I'm sure they've unveiled it by now, but we're renaming the boardroom after you.
Oh, you're very Thank you very much, Chairman. As my colleagues know, I'm a big believer in keeping these meetings on time, so I'm going to be really short. Thank you for your very kind words, Chairman. Thank you, Phil, for your very kind words. As I've said before, being part of Metrolinx is ranked with the most enjoyable, most meaningful things I've had an opportunity to do in my life. And I think the people are fantastic. The cause is great. We have amazing leadership of the organization. We've made tremendous progress, but the best is yet to come. The management's in great shape. The staff's in great shape. The board has terrific new leadership in Don Wright, who's a leading citizen of our community. He's smart, he's savvy, he's successful. We've known each other for a very long time, and he'll be terrific leading the organization from strength to strength. So to all of you, thank you very much for your kind words today and for your warm reception. And to all of you, good luck, God bless, and keep up the great work. The best is yet to come. Thank you very much.
So before we move on, I'd like to acknowledge receipt of the following correspondence, which has been distributed to the board. First, correspondence from Grant Everts dated March the 7th, 2018, relating to the proposed naming for the stops on the Finch West LRT. And some correspondence from the Fair Coalition dated June 27th, 18, requesting information regarding Presto ticket implementation. And lastly, correspondence from Fight Gridlock in Brampton dated September the 13th, 18, providing comments on a number of items before the board today, including GO Train's service west of Brampton Station, the Hurontario LRT, the Highway 401-409 tunnel, the Kitchener bypass, and the service on the Kitchener line. So I'll now call on Phil Verster, President and CEO of Metrolinx, to provide his CEO update.
Thank you very much, Chair. So firstly, I'd like to start the meeting by saying a few words in memory of our former GO Transit Chair and Chair of the Greater Toronto Services Board, Mr. Gordon Chong, who died this past July at the age of 74. Throughout Mr. Chong's long career, which also included serving as a Toronto City Councillor, he focused on improving transit, housing, and municipal affairs within the city. Our thoughts are with him and his family. It's also obviously my privilege from the Metrolinx organization, our staff, our top team, today to welcome our new chair, Don Wright. He comes to us with extensive business experience, knowledge, in the transportation industry, and just generally comes with a fantastic attitude to help us to lead this very important program and organization into the future. And it's a very exciting future we're facing. As is now the practice, we have a number of achievements that we'd like to highlight since the board met last April. And then we also have a number of achievements we'd like to celebrate with people that are in the room today. I'd like to start with a discussion on Presto and share with everyone in the public arena today that we've brought in many more ways for our customers to buy and load Presto cards, with a continued rollout of the Presto card services to all our Shoppers Drug Mart locations. Now more than 129 of these locations in the GTHA and in Ottawa. And new Presto vending machines are now at every TTC subway station entrance, giving our customers more options to buy and load their cards. And the new TTC 2-hour transfer for Presto, the time-based transfer which we've implemented in August, was launched on the 26th of August, and it allows customers to hop on and hop off anywhere on the TTC system, going anywhere in any direction within a 2-hour window while only paying a single fee. And while the investment in Presto to establish the fare management system, as we've reported, is at a cost of around $1.2 billion, attracts attention when one talks about costs. not enough discussion happens about the benefits that a card system brings, whether it is in increased ridership due to having lower hurdles of entry for people to travel, reduction in the cost of sales of the different transit agencies and making it cheaper and more efficient for people to travel, and in capacity savings, that investments that can be foregone because we have less ticket offices and more opportunities for us to increase the customer service by having people that are in self-serve environments. That doesn't normally attract as much discussion, and we look forward in the coming months to engage with our communities on what these benefits are. And we have seen tangible opportunities, and we have implemented them to stimulate fare integration, such as the Presto-based discounted double fare solution that we've had in operation since January, as well as the opportunities to just increase ridership. And when you look at our active joint campaign with the TTC over the last months to market the Presto service, the uptake and adoption of TTC riders of Presto is a very exciting phase that we are in now. We've had a fantastic collaboration with Ontario Northland and a partnership to pilot a combined weekend bus service. And we started it in this past August to give passengers and riders an opportunity to travel up to Muskoka and the North Bay region. And it's a convenient, comfortable way where we are combining rail and bus services, and it has had an excellent uptake, which is very positive. We're also very excited about the Niagara region, and we have recently appointed our design consultant to help us with the development of the station work for the expansion of services in this region. The detailed design of the 3 stations, including a new station in Grimsby and retrofitting the existing VIA stations in St. Catharines and Niagara, all falls into the scope of work, and this work is moving forward, which is very exciting for us. And then our first annual Transit Special Constable Women's Symposium took place at Humber College on August the 25th, and this was a sold-out event and gathered women from different backgrounds all over the region to expose them to the profession and to give them opportunities to look at what transferable skills they can bring to the region's transit safety and security activities that we've got. This is another step for us to include different groups and to improve our diversity and inclusion with regard to the special constable profession. I'd also like to share in this public section that we reached an agreement with Crosslinks earlier this month on how to share allocate the responsibilities for the risks that associate large capital investment programs. This was always part of our budget, always part of our program delivery, that there will be project risks that emerge and that we have to find ways to agree and allocate those risks. We have done so, and this agreement is a great success for both organizations and very opportune because it ensures our delivery of the Eglinton Crosstown LRT program on time and within budget for September 2021. This will bring essential improvements in mobility and transit choices to that part of Toronto itself. And then it's also my privilege today to acknowledge and to say thank you to Mary Prock, who's our Vice President of Customer Service Delivery. Mary has been with our organization for eons, it feels like. And Mary has had a fantastic impact. Mary, would you like to stand up, please? Mary joined us in 2008 and has been a tireless advocate for customers in our organization. And on her watch, customer satisfaction in 2009 was at 59%. Mary, through tireless efforts and a team, raised it to 84% in recent years as a peak. And in 2015, as if that wasn't enough, Mary also acted as the president of the Toronto Railway Club. She was a founding director of Women in Transportation Seminar, and the founding chair of the Customer Orientation Task Force for the Canadian Urban Transit Association, or CUTA. Mary has made a big impact on the industry. And in 2015, she was also named Outstanding Woman of the Year by Progressive Railroading. And today, Mary, I just anoint you Outstanding Woman of Metrolinx. You're just very special, and you've done so much for us, and we appreciate that. And in the coming weeks, when we say goodbye to you, there'll be more opportunities to say thank you, but thank you very much. Before moving on to other business, we have the immense pleasure today to recognize some of our Metrolinx staff who have demonstrated their commitment to living and breathing our safety and customer charter values, often going above and beyond the call of duty. And so I'd like to start with our first group and share with you that on August 7, at about 9:30 p.m., Union Station and other areas of our transit network experienced extreme flooding, part of changes in weather and the like, which affected our areas of service quite significantly. Especially 3 areas in and around Union Station was flooded and we needed to provide essential routes for pedestrians for those areas that were the most severely impacted. And at the time, a concert at the Scotiabank Centre and a baseball game at the Rogers Centre was coming to an end, and our staff had to respond really quickly and into an emergency mode to redirect thousands of pedestrians and customers to ensure their safety to get home. And Pat saw Pat here, and Pat, many members of Pat's team is here with him, but I'm very proud of the Metrolinx team and their great efforts to act in the night. And some people work beyond their shift time, everything to focus just on providing that service for our customers. And while many staff were involved, a few are here, and I want to stress it's not all, but it's just a few. I think it's about 12 or 15. I'm going to read your names, and we want to thank you for really putting our values in practice. I want to ask Don, our chair, to come out and to individually thank you and greet you and to say thank you. So I want to start with Sergeant Fatih Kilik. Sergeant Fatih Kilik.
He's coming.
Sergeant Obaidullah Faizi Isaac Kazay. Sergeant Christopher Chongson Tamant. Transit Safety Officer Leroy Passot. Transit Safety Officer Justin O'Neill. Customer Care Coordinator Roshan Belgrove. Customer Care Coordinator Andre Riley. Supervisor Station Operations Central, Catherine Irvine. Customer Care Coordinator Jessica Beecham. Plant Service Person Gabriel Jutler. And Plant Service Person Selva Aruma Gatnath. Just want to say there was a number of other staff members who were instrumental on the day that couldn't be here and who helped out, and we thank everyone in the broader organization. So that's been fantastic. I would also like to ask Brian Davis to participate in thanking what we recognize as Crosslinks Transit Solutions, CTSs, our constructor on Eglinton's great achievement of 2.6 million hours with no lost time injuries during this very, very important contract of ours. For a project with more than 20 construction sites and more than 100 subcontractors, ensuring safety on an ongoing basis is crucial to our local communities, to our employees in this GTHA area, and to people that are employed by CTS as well as their contractors. Keeping people safe is a daily focus and a daily passion. And the success of this depends on using leading performance indicators and practices such as life-saving rules, which CTS have deployed with great success. And because safety is crucial to Metrolinx and part of our active program with the construction community in this area, to continue to improve safety over the coming years is really important. And therefore, picking and identifying and rewarding and publicly acknowledging safety performance such as this is a really important part of what we have to do. It's my pleasure to ask Jeff van der Lee, the Implementation Director and Deputy Project Director for Crosslinks, to step forward and to receive our recognition from Brian Davies. It's also my privilege now to ask Anne Golden to step forward and for us to recognize some of the day-to-day great achievements with safety and customer focus that members of our organization do on a day-to-day basis as part of the day job without thinking twice. And it's a very big privilege for us to discuss this with you today. And I would like to ask Rachel Cast to step up. Rachel is one of our bus drivers, and while in transit, a front windshield was shattered while driving on the highway. And Rachel's quick and calm action, based on training and experience, led her to bring the bus to a standstill in an organized way, and then to ensure the safety and due care for our customers. Ensuring that no one was injured and ensuring that everyone was calm. Well done, Rachel. Then I'd like to ask James Sackett, a service person, to step forward as well. James, on occasion, went above and beyond to help a Georgetown Go customer to retrieve his car keys that dropped into a manhole near the station. James, you're the type of person I need to have around very often. James took his own initiative, went to the closest Canadian Tire, bought a mechanic magnet, and used it to recover the customer's keys, leaving us with a very happy and relieved customer. Thank you very much, James. Kathy Bardswick will present Aquina Jadu, a station attendant who assisted the customer in distress at Bloor Station, providing comfort while persuading the customer to move safely away from the station tracks and to take care with her own personal safety. Her actions demonstrated our commitment to our customers while preventing a potentially very serious tragedy. Thank you very much, Aquina. Rahul Bajwa will hand over our recognition to Brittany Wright. Brittany could not be here today, but also to Sharon Kamal Yassal, a transit safety officer who provided assistance with 2 medical emergencies on board an Up Express train. Not only did these 2 members of our staff respond very quickly to help out where they could, but Sharon Kamal even followed up with a customer on the very next day voluntarily to make sure the customer was in good health. Well done, Sharon Kamal. All of these achievements have been fantastic. And it's not really right to elevate one achievement above the others. But today there is one which involved real personal risk to members of our organization, which we want to acknowledge. Stefan Verhel, Brent Strawn, and Arun Kapadia. Arun couldn't be with us today because for normal business, he has to be in court today. Our transit safety officers who jumped into action in front of Union Station at 1 o'clock in the morning on August the 5th, when they intervened in what looked like an alleged robbery. The officers were wrapping up a call when they heard what sounded like a fight between 2 men. The suspect was running straight towards them, and the officers heard the victim screaming that he had just been robbed. That's when Officer Verhel noticed the gun. Before he could fully alert his partner, Officer Strawn tackled the man. The loaded .25 caliber pistol in his hand was pointed at Officer Verhel's chest. All 3 officers were able to subdue and disarm the suspect with their batons, detaining him until the authorities arrived. These officers demonstrated bravery, instinctive courage, customer support, and dealt with a potentially dangerous situation in a way which is super exemplary. I'd like to ask Janet Ecker to step forward and to hand over to Stefan and Brent their letters of recognition. Thank you very much. So a special thank you to everyone who was here today and to our staff and our customers who truly live our values and demonstrate our customer safety charter in action. I also want to congratulate Becca Nagorski, our Director Project Planning at Metrolinx. Becca has been chosen by Progressive Railroading magazine as a Rising Star of 2018. Becca, are you there? Oh, there you are. Becca has been recognized as one of those individuals under the age of 40 who are the up-and-coming leaders in the rail industry and are recognized on a global basis for a dedication and contribution to a number of projects in Metrolinx. Well done, Becca. And well done to all of our employees that were recognized today. Thank you very much for your fantastic ongoing work, and all the best for the future.
Thank you, Phil. So usually the next report, which is on the appointment of officers, is taken as read, but Heather, is there anything that you need to add to this particular
Nothing
item?
unusual.
So, there are no questions on that. We'll move on to the next item. Brian Davies, who's the chair of the Audit Committee, and Jennifer Gray, who's our acting chief financial officer, will now present the annual report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think Jennifer's going to come up. There she is. Draw attention to board members to page 12 of our electronic board book. There you will find a resolution that after our discussion I will put forward. And this matter deals with our annual report. And I would point out as the chair of the Finance and Audit Committee, which is always looking to keep our costs down, that we are printing copies, but they're only going to be in black and white. But on our website, there'll be a full color version of the annual report. The annual report is produced to look back on the significant milestones of 2017-18, including progress made on the GO expansion program and on new rapid transit projects across the region, as well as customer experience initiatives and increased services for GO, Presto, and Up Express customers. The annual report also outlines how Metrolinx has been evolving as an organization under the leadership of Phil, and all the work that we're doing to be properly positioned to successfully achieve our mandate going forward. The Audit, Finance, and Risk Management Committee has reviewed this annual report and found that it was fully appropriate, but this is the opportunity for the balance of the board to ask any questions or make any comments about the document, which, as I said, is in your materials and is available there. So, any other comments, observations?
Questions or comments?
I was just wondering if they had a hard copy. I've gone through it on the iPad, but are there hard printed copies here? No.
We can arrange for hard
Oh, it doesn't matter.
copies.
It's okay. I have read it, but I just.
Jennifer, would you like to pick up on 2 or 3 items from the annual report?
So from the annual report, I think it really highlights all of the great work that was done in 17-18. I think that there are, I think in your earlier remarks, you spoke about the Presto information around the cost of delivering on Presto and the benefits that we focus on in terms of the delivery of the Presto system and the fare card solution and the cost of sales savings that provides to not just GO Transit but to the region the broader region. From a financial perspective, in terms of the financial statements, I would highlight maybe just 2 particular things. So we have submitted our financial statements to the Ministry of Transportation and the Ministry of Finance, and they'll be published in the government's public accounts. One of the things I would just highlight from a process perspective is that the external audit, PwC looks after our external audit function, and this year the Auditor General exercised their authority to come in and review our financial statements and our audit file, and I would report to the board that the review of that file went very well and there were no further questions. So I think we do have a lot of engagement that happens with the Auditor General's office, and from our perspective in management, I think that was quite successful.
During this year, 2 particular operational thrusts in the organization that will be really evident is the work that we have done in our capital projects group to give the control and structure and the delivery of our key programs, such as the early works programs on the RER expansion as well as our LRT programs, is now on track and is in the space that we want it to be for achieving our objectives and targets for delivery. And then secondly, that in our operational division for GO, we are continuing our expansion of services this year, which will reach a 25% output and increase in services when we implement new services in the coming months. and that program to continue to expand services as we head on is well established, well entrenched, and we are excited about continuing that drive to increase services going forward. But those are the main items for the annual report, and if there are any further questions from the board.
Any questions? No?
I see none. Chair, I'd be willing to move the motion that the CEO submit the annual report to the Minister of Transportation in accordance with the Metrolinx Act
Thank you,
2006.
seconder. Thank you, Ms. Golden. All in favor? Any opposed? No? Carried. I did not do a resolution for the appointments of officers, which would be appropriate. So can I have a mover for the appointment of officers? Thank you, Rahul. Seconder? Thank you, Marianne. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Okay. Thank you, Brian and Jennifer. And Jennifer, you're still on the spot. And the next issue is the corporate key performance indicators. So let's lead right into that.
Excellent.
You may.
So today we're providing you an update on the implementation of strategic objective number 5, the implementation of KPIs and management structures by February 2018. In the audience, I have a director of strategic business planning that is responsible for leading the implementation of KPIs. I don't know, Anne, if you'd like to come to the table as well. In case there are any additional questions. I would note that there is a board resolution associated with the update. Management is looking for the endorsement of the board related to 6 KPIs, our 6 top line KPIs that we have for the organization. I'd like to start off with why KPIs are so important. KPIs are critical to help us monitor how we're doing in terms of our strategic and our operational goals. If you don't measure it, you can't manage it. Not only do KPIs help us establish a way for us to track our progress against our organizational goals, but KPIs also help us foster individual and shared accountability. Broadly, reporting on our KPIs creates organizational alignment around our priorities, and it can help boost morale. Since the 15 strategic objectives were identified, there's been a lot of really great progress on the implementation of KPIs. SMT owners for the strategic objectives were tasked with determining how is it that we are going to measure our progress against our strategic objectives. They're responsible for creating action plans to achieve their targets. Some of our strategic objectives are very quantifiable and measurable, and some of them are more time-based with milestones. We track both kinds of KPIs. Anne and her team created the backbone and the structure for the implementation of KPIs, and business units and teams across Metrolinx were responsible for implementing. We previously had a set of KPIs where we didn't really have targets and we didn't talk about it very much. And what we've seen since we've implemented is a significant cultural change in our organization. Each business unit has KPIs, each KPI has a target, and we talk about them. And we use them on a regular basis in our decision-making processes. The 6 top KPIs were developed to be broadly reported across the organization. The purpose of these 6 KPIs was to instill a culture of measurement, to create organizational alignment, and to build morale for our successes, and to always challenge ourselves to do even better. As we are asking, as management is asking for your endorsement of these KPIs, I want to provide you with a little bit of background information about how we arrived at this particular set of 6. We started off by looking at each of the key pillars of our strategy: safety, people, plan and build, and customer experience. Management wanted to make sure that the KPIs, each KPI would be directly related to one of the strategic objectives, that there would be at least one KPI for each of the 4 pillars. And then we wanted to make sure that the KPIs would be meaningful to staff across the organization. Does it change frequently enough? If we are going to report it on a monthly basis, will people see movement in what's happening? So you'll see in front of you on this slide the 6 KPIs that we selected. Our safety measure, LTIFR, lost time injury rate, where we measure how safe is our workplace for our workers. People, we measure that through employee absenteeism, which is a proxy for employee satisfaction. We have other measures related to employee satisfaction on engagement, but that's something we only measure twice a year. So that is why we selected absenteeism as our measure for employee satisfaction, how happy our employees are to be here. Plan and build. We selected capital milestones. How are we doing in the delivery of our capital projects according to how we've planned them? The fourth one, operating expenses. It's really around our financial accountability against our plan. Customer experience round out the last 2 of our 6 top-line KPIs, which really get at how effective are we at delivering reliable transit services to our customers. For our service brands of rail and bus, we measure that through on-time performance. For our fare card, we measure that through Presto adoption. For each of these 2 customer experience measures, there would be companion measures that measure customer satisfaction, but our customer satisfaction measures aren't measured that frequently. So we selected on-time performance and adoption as those measures that would change frequently enough to show progress and to make sure that we're measuring the key contributors to what drive customer satisfaction in those areas. We've launched these 6 KPIs. We did so in late May, early June, across the organization. We included them as our homepage on our intranet, opening page on Metrolinx to make sure that they're broadly communicated across the organization. We've included in our periodic updates and newsletters that go out, and our leadership team talks about them at our meetings.
Thank you very much, Jen.
Yes.
That was a great report. So just the obvious question then, I guess I'm assuming that the 14 indicators that are at risk or behind target are all in the capital area.
No, I mean, so not all of our indicators that are behind are related to capital. There are a variety of indicators. One very interesting thing that we've learned as part of assessing ourselves is that you have to be honest about the status of where you're at, and it's okay to have an item that is red or behind. And the important part of it is now that we're measuring it, we know where we're at, and we develop action plans to then go forward and mitigate the why it is red and really develop that path to green.
So do you want to just comment a bit on the one that of the six indicators that you measure most regularly, the one that's red is on the capital project milestones?
Yes. So this was actually one of our from our June results, and as we move forward to our July results that we actually discussed this past Tuesday at our senior management team, that particular indicator has moved from being red to being green. And
I think Peter can comment on what you're doing in your organization to catch up on those milestones.
Right.
We are setting aggressive plans, as Phil explained in the CTS item. We had one job there which went from very much at risk for the schedule for 2021 to on target for 2021, so that will affect these results.
What was that job?
That was the Eglinton Crosstown, where it was previously needed to be tracked behind because we were in the middle of a commercial discussion.
Right, so that
now tracking to being on target. So with each of the milestones which are not in the green, we have specific action plans, and we'll be looking to turn everything green.
Okay, so that, I understand that, but thank you.
I think the point Jen makes, which is really powerful, is the first part of establishing the right culture to work in was that there was a concern that red meant failure. Red doesn't mean failure. Red means this program, the scheduled action, is not, our action plans aren't achieving the target we want to achieve. It just means we need more corrective actions, more mitigations, and lift the performance in that particular KPI. And that's part of the culture change, which I think goes along with having accountability and measurement as we've implemented now.
Rahul, you have a question?
Yeah, Jennifer, this is really helpful. It's simple, which is good to get our head around, and I know that's good for our management purposes. What I'm curious to know is, as you chose these particular KPIs, and if I go back to some of your comments, some are proxies for other things.
Right.
Some, they're easier to measure. because you get a quicker snapshot. Others are sort of, they'll be done twice a year or something like that. As a management team, when you actually had the conversation about what do we want to measure, what are the outcomes we're looking for, and you came up with these 6, was there any sense that these are going to evolve into other KPIs over time? And where I'm driving at is it's helpful to have consistency on KPIs so you know what the levers of the business are. And we're just sort of starting this process now, but was there any conversation on where that might go?
Absolutely, there were conversations related to that. And this is the broader set of KPIs that we send out to the whole organization to get that alignment. In addition to these KPIs, there is a broader set we've been talking about in our management team. And we absolutely expect evolution of what that KPI set will look like over time as we get better at aligning how we measure the outcomes that we want to achieve and how we drill down into our organization. So our level of KPIs that we have right now that we report to at the SMT level is about 6 to 7 per SMT member, but behind that, much like on the looking at risks, we want to drive that down into the organization as part of the next steps. And then there are KPIs, for example, that I would have that are how I run my business, how I support the organization. And so those are some of our next steps to get in, kind of really embed that in the organization. And I think there will always be opportunity and room for looking at how you measure yourself, and as that changes over time.
What was very pertinent about that is as the capital program develops, one of the things that we're very keen on is to see how Mark's campaign around off-peak services develop as well. And you'd see in our KPIs here, we have the Presto adoption rate, which is currently pertinent, but we don't have a top-level KPI. We have in Mark's area, we have a very firm KPI on ridership and revenue, fair revenue, but we've not elevated to the top 6 in the organization yet, but we will in the coming months, exactly on the principle you've got, as that becomes more of an issue, as we look at how our off-peak revenue program should be kicking in, we may lift that up and look at that as a corporate level KPI.
Just a quick follow-up to that, and that's actually a really good example, the Presto one. At some point, we'll reach saturation.
Yes.
And it won't be as relevant as something else, something like customer satisfaction, which you identified quite rightly isn't, well, we don't track it on a daily basis or a monthly basis, but with the use of technology, at some point, we might be able to.
Yeah.
And it'd be interesting to see how we can start to get a little bit more refined on that.
Roel, I mean, just add in there, so we have historically relatively infrequently measured customer satisfaction. Actually, this month we started to pilot measuring it monthly on Go. So that is exactly a KPI that will evolve and that we, as a marketing team, will report out with the stakeholders in the leadership team. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, if I perhaps can just conclude. The real thing, and Jen said it, but the real thing about these 6 KPIs is any organization needs to communicate relative progress to strategic objectives to all its employees in a simple, unambiguous, clear manner. Now, we all know employees have different levels of interest in where all of the bigger picture stuff goes, but generally, employees really want to see what's happening and where we're going and what the trend is. And I think this is our big objective behind these 6, is to start that process of getting that visibility and transparency for our employees to have line of sight right up to our objectives of delivering our programs and serving our customers and being a safe organization. So that's the intent of the 6 KPIs.
Good point. So on this item, as you said in the beginning, we need to do a resolution. So could I thank you, Seconder? Thanks, Mayor. All in favor? Anyone opposed? No. Carried. Okay. So the next item is an update and some information on the rail transit plan. And I believe, Leslie, you're going to do that. Leslie is our Chief Planning and Development Officer, and she's going to give us an update on this plan that was originally discussed at our March meeting.
Thank you very much, Chair. And I will invite our new Vice President of Planning, Mathieu Guetut, who I'm going to ask to introduce himself. And you all know Antoine Belayev, our Director of Regional Planning. Maybe, Mathieu, just briefly introduce yourself, and then I will address the Chair and the recommendation to the Board.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, board members, so my name is Mathieu Gutske. I was trained as an engineer in France at École Polytechnique and then at Stanford on economic systems. And so my background and my career started in regional planning with the French Ministry of Transportation. And then I moved to transportation research and innovation policy. And the last decade I've spent in a city in northern France, so as chief planner, a city that's rebuilt itself on high-speed rail.
That would be Lille.
Yes, in Lille.
So, Mr. Chair and members of the board, the recommendation before you is a follow-up from the regional transportation plan that the board adopted earlier this year, and it was one of the follow-up actions around the initiation of a regional roundtable. And what we are asking the board is, we'll give you a little background, and we have convened the group, and we are feeling confident that this group could serve us well in terms of the implementation of the planning for the implementation of the regional transportation plan. So there's a three-part recommendation that the board endorse the formal establishment of the regional roundtable as the forum for advancing the RTP, the 2041 RTP, and that we work with the roundtable to develop explicitly recommendations and a strategy for project and program priorities coming out of the plan, and that we report back on the activities in early 2019. That's the resolution in front of you, and I'm going to ask Mathieu and Antoine to just quickly, briefly elaborate how the meeting went and why we are of the opinion that this is a good way forward.
Yes, just to expand on this, the frequent rapid transit network that's in the RTP has links of very different natures. Some are heavy rail, some are light rail, some are bus, and they're operated and managed, and they're on land at different levels and different levels of governance. And so the complexity of the system requires a more collaborative approach to regional decision making. So the Making It Happen paper that the board approved in March identified the first steps in implementing the plan and relies on, and it highlights a lot of this required kind of high level of alignment with the municipalities. Transit starts with a local ridership base. The integration with city building efforts is essential to its success. So cooperation with municipalities can both speed up the implementation and really strengthen the business case of our transit projects in a variety of ways. So building on the strategic wheel that Jen mentioned earlier, so there was a corporate strategic objective that mentioned the convening of this regional roundtable to address the need for a specific forum that didn't exist up to now, dedicated to transit and transportation issues, and also to how they combine with land use and city building. So the July roundtable that was its first convening. Maybe I'll tell, I wasn't there yet. I wasn't with Metrolinx at that time, so I'll let Antoine maybe give you just a brief summary of how it happened and how that constructive forum started.
So as you all know, as Mathieu reminded everyone, transportation planning and implementation of projects in this region is highly collaborative because each entity really controls important aspects of the transportation system. So engagement, collaboration is nothing new. It was the foundation of the big move. It was the foundation of the RTP. And while we engaged city managers and CAOs in the elaboration of the RTP, we had not convened CAOs and city managers as a group. It had been done as part of discussions around Presto with great success. So we decided to convene this group, and we didn't know what to expect, and we were very pleasantly surprised how welcoming the group was of this initiative, and how excited they were to hear directly from Phil about his vision, and to be able to convene and collect around the development of the transportation system. So we were very tentative around our goals for the first workshop. First, we wanted to ask, are you interested in continuing getting together? And we got a resounding yes. About 3 or perhaps even more times per year, and they spent the time, as I said, listening to Phil, making individual presentations around what they feel their priorities are, and these were, nothing really new, but reinforcement of their interest in two-way all-day go train service and a reaffirmation of how important it is to their communities. Fare and service integration, station access, transit as a catalyst of economic growth, so really the raison d'etre of the program, and of course, financial resources to further expand the program. So through discussion that day, the group came up with a few priorities. First, the prioritization, the establishment of, I would say, an organized work program for future projects, information sharing to better prepare for the extraordinary growth that will come through Go expansion. I think even though everybody intellectually is starting to understand the magnitude of that change, there's a lot more work that needs to be done to really weave it into these communities. Coordinating approaches to new ride-hailing partnerships. This is something, there was just a very interesting article on the CBC website this morning around the impact of ride-hailing on cities, and that's something that is both an opportunity and potentially a threat if it's not addressed properly.
On the impact of
ride
sharing,
so Lyft, Uber, and services of the sort, and their ability to be very, very nimble and innovative, and as I said, could be a real opportunity for us, but also in some areas potentially a threat. We discussed how we can optimize the use of existing rail capacity around the region, and that's something that Phil has been very focused on, how we can squeeze these assets more so that we can more service to more people. And the group also decided to focus on the advancement of fare integration in the region. So what I want to highlight in the board report is the table at the end, which shows examples of progress that is being done on various areas of the plan. If the plan was just a map of projects, it would just be one page. But this is the RTP. You're all familiar with it. It's about 200 pages, and it has a lot of conditions for success. So I mentioned fare and service integration, ride-hailing, there's climate adaptation. There's a lot of pieces that need to come together and that are all predicated on extensive collaboration. So the board report provides highlights of progress that is being done in this area on fare and service integration, on station access, on the long-term Go Bus plan, on the Pearson employment area, so on and so forth. So
I think we're good. We can probably open the floor for questions now.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Leslie and team. I do have one question. First of all, I think I'm very happy that the regional planning session worked out and that the response is enthusiastic. That's promising. I thought the report, I liked the format of the report and tracking progress in the various areas. But I had one question for you, Leslie. When you're in setting priorities, and when we say that evidence of progress for setting priorities is that you're working on setting a priorities framework.
So I think if I can respond, if I could respond.
Slight hint of impatience.
Yes, I think this is, yes. What I would like to say is that what we would like to build with the Regional Roundtable is an agreement around what the criteria are for prioritizing. And without that, I mean, we could go away, the three of us, and come up with some criteria, but unless, as we talked about, having the municipalities on board, agreement around assumptions, criteria, which are how to weight them or not weight them, that's the exercise we want to do. And that was not part of the scope of the Regional Transportation Plan, so now we're progressing in that area.
Right.
And I think, Anne, just be clear on this, because you pick up on the key item of the day.
I try.
No, this is for the regional transportation, for the regional roundtable. The key issue for the regional roundtable is to agree on, and we decided it'll probably be 3 tranches: high, medium, low, prioritization bands of the 2041 list of projects. It will be prioritization according to transportation benefits. So the bottom line business case approach that we've followed, we'll agree on the adoption of that business case with the wider group. We've established that as the Metrolinx method. We have already interacted with all of the other regional authorities, such as TTC, on that same business case methodology. And it will be the first cut of what are the priorities for implementation going forward. So that in itself is a very significant step forward. So, and it fits in our overall model to within our mandate as the mandate stands today to collaborate and get the region to collaborate and to set priorities. And as you know, those priorities are the big area of debate about whose project in what part of the region should get priority above another. This is the first step towards that. We will bring that back to the board for approval, and we'll also interact, as we always do, with the shareholder and MTO, who were in the room at the time, to ensure that the shareholder has full visibility of what those priorities are.
The reason why I'm so focused on this, Phil and Leslie, as you know from when we worked on the plan, is depending on which prism you're looking through, whether your prism includes the understanding of complete communities, whether it understands the integration issues around land use and all these things, versus the immediate urgency of, say, pressure on a particular point from a particular municipality, that is so important. And I just wanted to point out the work that I think that was done in the City of Toronto, the work that was done, if I can be, I don't want to sound self-serving, but the work that was done on priority setting by my own transit panel, you've got a lot of pieces that to build on there.
So you're foreshadowing the really interesting debate that I think the board will be able to participate. And so that is all, those are all true, I'll call them variables, conditions for success that we now have to mat against our business case and prioritization framework. So I look forward to that conversation with the board.
Just to offer, if
yes, we welcome every and all assistance.
Well, you had a question.
Thanks. So Leslie, I'm mindful of the conversation we've been having for years around the big move and its success and the importance of collaboration to actually make that happen. And it's been great to see the progress and the spirit. I'm also mindful we talked about fair and service integration as being one of the key outputs or outcomes depending on the lens that you want.
Yes.
And my specific question is, I was always curious about what's the impact on the conversations of fair integration on actually the success of service integration? So in other words, collaboration is great until you start talking about money, then people tend to run off in their own corners and you have a different issue. So, you know, we had this desire to have increased service integration and I hear from Antoine that's going on well, good spirit, but, you know, fair integration can either be complementing that or can be actually obstructing that as well.
I think it's, so the two are very intertwined, but what I would say is we're trying to move the discourse not only from costs, but benefits. So we have historically placed a lot of emphasis on the costs, but not talked about either the project benefits, the community benefits, the broader benefits. And so that is why the Regional Roundtable will now, we will want to broaden that, and we have the foundation for doing that based on our business case methodologies and the way we approach how we evaluate. So I think we're well on our way to bring these things much closer together. It will, I'm not saying it's going to be a piece of cake, it'll be a difficult conversation, and yes, it will involve money at some point, but I think we're trying to understand really what is it we need for the region, what's most important to those around the table, and how can we calibrate between both costs and benefits.
Is it fair to say that the conversation around fair integration is not hampering progress on service integration?
And not at this point. I mean, it's not that it's not central to our conversation, but I think the collegiality to understand that we all want to move forward is enabling us. It's actually the thing that's giving more of the wind on our sails.
The fact
at
that
this
the province
point,
stepped up to fill a little bit of that gap presumably helped that.
It does. And Leslie and Antoine, at the regional round table, it was also interesting to see how the different transit agencies and operators were talking talking about service integration when we discussed the growth in Go
Yes.
in a very constructive, positive dynamic. And to say these are the types of considerations they will have. This is and we explain the benefits of footfall and the like. And the discussion is vibrant. So the two, I have a strong sense that the two are not overlapping at this stage. But it gets to a point where fair integration is going to be a big enabler for switching behaviors. And as you know, we've kept the fair integration initiatives going with government, and it's currently there are proposals still on the table.
Any other questions of this group?
I'm pleased to support the resolution.
Can I take that as a motion?
Yes, please.
Thank you. A seconder? Thank you, Lynn. All in favor? That is passed. Thank you. Thank you very much, Leslie and Matthew, Antoine. I'm getting used to the names, but it's going to take a little while. So our next presenter is Mark Childs, our Chief Marketing Officer. He's going to give us an update on the Up Express ridership.
And I'd like to invite, please, Ken Cachet, our Director of Analytics, Research and Customer Experience, to join me, should there be any questions related to the analytics. Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Board. My first time presenting at this table and sharing an update with energy and passion and excitement related to Up Express. And I hope through the course of the quick review here, we have an opportunity to share with you how we are using KPIs and data and analytics to support some of the decisions that we're making. I'm also excited to share this update because in June, of course, Up Express celebrated its 3rd-year anniversary. And so as we move forward here, what I plan to cover is an update on the progress of Up Express from a ridership perspective and a customer experience point of view, and provide updates on 3 specific initiatives that we believe will contribute to increasing that engagement and experience with customers by delighting them with what we know today is already an experience that is being very well appreciated. And to the point of our KPIs, the customer satisfaction for Up Express is at 80% currently, and our on-time performance is near 100% at 99.7. So again, a very clear demonstration that this service is meeting the needs of our customers. I'll talk to the 3 initiatives as we move through the slides, but we are going to be talking about an in-flight, in-progress initiative around the customer service desk in collaboration and partnership with the customer service team. Some new activity and new proposals related to ticket vending machines and supporting mobile sales agents. And then an upcoming advertising campaign which will endeavor to increase appeal and ridership. And I would say, while Ken and I are certainly here, there is a whole team of individuals who I'd like to acknowledge behind the scenes who are doing the tireless work to bring this to life, not least of which our partner at the Greater Toronto Airport Authority, without whom this plan could not be delivered. Our resolution, there is a resolution for this particular item, which would be looking for endorsement of the plans to continue to build out the initiatives. As a quick update on our performance, in summary form, we are growing incredibly well. Customers are coming to Up as a service and using us time and time again. And we are seeing, obviously, very healthy double-digit growth in terms of ridership, with our average monthly now in excess of 19%. And I would just point out that in June, on the 3rd anniversary, it was one of our record months with actually 417,000 passengers. Which compares to the monthly average of 312. And we're seeing growth, importantly, not just during daily ridership times, but also on weekends. But believe that there is indeed still more opportunity for us to both grow ridership and revenue. As a visualization of the analytics behind the work from Ken's team, I won't spend too long on this slide because I think you've had a chance to review this, but we are constantly monitoring and measuring performance of the line and at each of the stations. And I would point out as a highlight that at this point, 66% of our riders are in fact airport travelers, contributing almost 81% of revenue. So very much delivering against our mandate. The initial,
Sorry, could I just interrupt on that, because I'll lose it if I don't recall. On that diagram, if I'm reading it correctly, at Bloor, we're picking up quite a few people who are going straight through to the airport.
Yes, we are.
I've often wondered, because I've used that myself, the connection between getting off the subway and getting onto the Up Express platform is still a little bit difficult and awkward. Is anything being done to address that over time?
Yes, so a piece of work had been done. We had issues in terms of property rights, discussion with developers to make that connection more effective. We have an action plan around that, which is part of the capital program, that will make that connection better going forward.
But notwithstanding that, it's still pretty good pickup.
Yeah, pretty good pickup.
At Bloor, it's almost 45% going to the airport. It's almost 50-50, so it's a great composition.
Thank you. Sorry for interrupting.
No, not at all. The three programs that we're going to review have the diligence behind them of having clear metrics and action standards against them in terms of business contribution, again, aligned to our desire to build out the commercial opportunities here.
And if I could just, Mark is saying all of these things in a very nice way, but if I can just crystallize it to sort of a hard reality. We are growing the Up service at 19% per year, year on year, but we're doing it without having as much of a front foot sales effort as we could have. When you get to Pearson, it is as if you have to find the train station and buy your tickets at the train station. That's not front foot enough. And so in a nice way, Mark is talking to you about what we're going to do differently and what we're doing differently, and the huge returns we've seen already by just having a more front foot approach.
Yep.
So these are positive revenue?
Oh, yes. These
Okay,
are
just
absolutely.
trying to
Yes.
understand the numbers, whether it's a cost or revenue.
Yeah.
I had one question I wanted to ask you, Mark, and that is, this increase in ridership, is it just because people getting off planes realize there's a train? Like, I mean, why all of
Chair, I would offer the analytics kind of tell us that over half of the passengers are buying their ticket day of. And very little forward planning. So I think this plan will address both ensuring that we get enough riders in that moment, but also how do we help folks understand that they can pre-plan. So 55% of same day, 28% the week of, and very little kind of advanced planning, and that's part of the plan.
Is the increase due to just increased awareness?
No, the increase predominantly is because of the adjustment in the fare that we introduced more than a year ago.
So that,
So the initial fare was set at a level which was higher than what the market could bear, and it's been reduced since, and we are seeing that 19% reflects, so a substantial proportion of that growth will be attributable to the price point.
For sure. But just in terms of its growth in the latter part of the year, after a year, is it because more people are becoming aware of the...
I think it's definitely people are becoming more aware of it, but also the service is meeting the expectations and needs of our customers. And we see that clearly in some of the brand research and validation.
Here's another question then, and that is, of the people taking the Up, are they all Ontarians that are like local to here, or how many people just getting off a jet from California who have never been here before are actually using the Up and realize that the Up is really there instead of taking a cab or whatever?
It's a mix of both. So we do have a lot of people that are from outside the country, and that's why it's important to have an online presence, because a lot of these people may not purchase their ticket in advance, but they become aware of the service. I believe the last number of airport travelers I looked at was close to 40%. I can validate that for the board. But it is a mix of both. So the growth that we're seeing is beyond the airport traffic growth, so it's not all just organic. And whenever you introduce a new service that's compelling, there is a ramp-up period. So there's the marketing efforts, and then there's word of mouth. And I think we're seeing a bit of both.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So the first initiative is already in flight, as I have mentioned. We've extended the staffed customer service desk hours by 8. So we now run from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., which matches the kind of peak traffic flows at the GTAA. We've seen in our first 4 weeks of the pilot some very promising returns, and we're already seeing a revenue profile that exceeds 2.5%. So we're not quite at our 3-to-1 kind of team mandate, but we are getting very close. What I would say is certainly the case. We're confident that that will continue to build as we strengthen the visual presence and appeal of the booth and work with the GTAA to strengthen that presence and wayfinding to the booth. The booth will also now move forward to carrying preloaded Presto cards, which will support the regional transit options, not just up, which is a great add for the region. On the second initiative, which is in planning mode at this point, it will involve relocation of 3 to 5 of the machines. There are 9 ticket vending machines at the airport. A large percentage of the transactions are delivered by the platform-based vending machines. So we're going to be looking at replacing those machines in the baggage hall areas of both international and domestic in both Terminal 1 and 3. So as folks are waiting for their bags, they have the opportunity to interact with ambassadors who will be present at those relocated TVMs, ticket vending machines. And we are leaning into both the Heathrow Express best practice as well as our own experience with Presto during the TTC kind of ambassador rollout.
Kathy?
All right, go ahead, Kathy.
Yeah, I was really pleased to read this one. And I guess my question is whether, in fact, the airport partner planning and progress, whether you're getting the level of collaboration. It seems to me, whenever I'm at the airport, numerous times I'm asked to help somebody find the up, right? And so I was glad to see the initiative, but are we getting the level of collaboration you would hope?
We absolutely are. So the team, in the short tenure that I've been here, we've actually, the team and I have met with the GTAA partners 4 times. They're actually going to be there this afternoon and are actually in active negotiation with them on those location sites.
And if I can add to that, Howard Eng and myself, as Howard as the CEO and president at the GTAA, have built a relationship. I've attended their board meeting with our business plans. Howard and myself meet regularly for discussion on what we can do together. And I think as our collaboration increases around what we want to do with the Kitchener line, what we want to do with moving people, again, from a real mobility perspective, working with the GTA has been really successful in these last months. And this is one of the initiatives that's benefiting from that coordination. But the really interesting and practical thing here, Mark, is surely the fact that we are moving these ticket vending machines to front and center in the reception halls, and with people not standing behind the counter, but standing in front of a counter, much more accessible, service-oriented, selling from the front foot.
And working with GTAA, obviously also looking at customer flows. So thinking about the business traveler who isn't picking a bag up at the baggage carousel. So in Terminal 1, we'll have an additional presence in the bridge area above baggage hall. The third area is very much work in progress. So I just would please ask our chair and board just to acknowledge that the visualizations on the right-hand side are conceptual. We are in real-time production. We are developing a new Up Express integrated communication campaign, which will focus around 25 minutes and provide wherever we can relative context to travel times outside of using Up Express. That campaign will both be present in the airport on our own assets, but most importantly also as we endeavor to help our customers think about pre-planning. It will largely be a digital campaign, both in mobile, and we will be looking to provide links where customers who see that work can actually click and purchase an e-ticket in the moment that they decide that they are going to be using the
the airport and Airport Express. So it's a very innovative campaign. I think it will be breakthrough. It will be engaging and certainly provide that context of an assured time, 25 minutes to downtown Toronto, no matter the weather, no matter the construction, no matter the traffic.
Yes, well.
This is great to see the progress in this. I'm going to leap forward to sort of, I think might be the next iteration or generation, and that's open system payment for this. So right now we've got the machines, the Presto card and the sort. Have you thought about, well, what's the integration plan for Presto when it starts to go open system payment? And does Up Express become a part of that? So instead of actually having to go to one of the ATMs, you literally walk up to some sort of a thing you just tap on and tap off. Is that an option going forward?
So what we've demonstrated at the board, I think it's probably two board meetings ago now, was Presto Virtual, which we envisage as part of the Presto app going forward. It's still at development stage, as we demonstrated then, and there's still more development to do on that, and that's our proposal for a future path, which our shareholder is currently considering in terms of how we go forward. What that would be, if you picture something such as Apple Pay, where you have a way to just progress your payment with a mobile device, Virtual Presto would be in effect a Presto card that is virtually part of your mobile and of your wallet. The reason why that's not exactly open payment, so let's be really clear. Open payment is the principle that a credit card gets you through, buys you a ticket directly without interacting with another party. Presto Virtual will still require you to have a Presto presence or Presto profile, and the virtual Presto card would get you through the gated system. The reason for that is because we've invested in technology over a period of years, different gate technology, tap on, tap off, pillar technology, the technology has moved on, and open payments would require a reinvestment in capital infrastructure to get open payments fully. But if you adopt a virtual Presto approach, we can achieve the same outcome, but with less investment in capital. It's more practical. Till we get to the next iteration of when the equipment comes to end of life, which will then allow us to leapfrog again and apply, and then move to open payment. So yes, part of the Presto project future development program is to get us to virtual Presto and to that functionality you refer to.
Some time away yet.
Well, it's potentially not that far away. The Presto team, led by Annalise, is busy with a piece of work.
This is the virtual Presto.
Yeah, virtual Presto.
The open system payment isn't.
Open Presto is a way away, but virtual Presto, we're very excited about the possibilities. There are technical challenges which the teams are working on, and so we are putting a plan together for the shareholder to consider how we get there as soon as possible.
Kathy, you had a question?
Yeah, is the reference to the waytizing, is that the app Waze?
No, actually.
No?
So when we think of wayfinding, we think of obviously generally best practice design for official wayfinding.
Right.
So waytizing is sort of bringing some more engagement to supplemental messaging that helps you find the platform, helps you find the booth. So more like a wayfinding advertising combination. And we have actually explored that already with the GTA. They're very open to that integrated messaging, and we're excited to bring that to bear to supplement the official wayfinding at the airport. Yeah.
Any other questions?
If I could just say, Chair, the main thing that we wanted to share in this presentation is that in our marketing team, we have shifted gears towards real practical orientation issues in terms of sales, in terms of marketing, in terms of messaging, in terms of customer focus. And this is it's an obvious step to take, and it's a step as an organization we're taking very, very, very decisively. And this is exciting because it affects not only as an approach, affects not only what we do on up, but it also affects the approach that Mark and his team is taking to non-fare revenue, such as partnerships and advertising, which we'll share with you at future board meetings, where a similar front foot approach towards sales and having a sales force that sells stuff out there would be really evident to the board in months to come. Thank you.
Good. I think we have a resolution to basically to just support the strategies that Mark and his team have come up with to go forward. Thank you, Kathy. Seconder? Thanks, Joel. All in favor? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Carried. Thank you very much, Mark and Ken. Appreciate that. So Jennifer is going to join us again and give us a report on the Auditor General's report.
So I'd like to start off by introducing Greg Murphy, who is our new Acting Director of Internal Audit. Since the last board meeting, Peggy Gilmore has left Metrolinx, and Greg Murphy has stepped into the acting role. Greg brings with him a lot of experience in internal audit and has been with Metrolinx since 2014. In the last 9 months has been part of setting up our investment panel, and as part of that has gained a lot of collaborative experience in building our processes across Metrolinx, and we welcome back to internal audit where he started within Metrolinx. So this is Greg. So the note is very, I think, explanatory in terms of the work that's going on with the Auditor General's office. I think you can see from the material there are a number of engagements we have going on with the Auditor General's office. I think there are two key things that I would highlight from this and then turn it open for questions that the board may have. I would say, one, I think you can see from the fact that there are still follow-up items that go back to early audits that have happened in the past, that the Auditor General's office is now tracking all of the recommendations that they've made in previous audits. And so you'll see that there are still some outstanding recommendations that need to get addressed. And we as an organization have really changed our approach to tracking the recommendations from the Auditor General's office in line with the way that they have changed their approach. And we are committed to make sure that will be putting together action plans to address those outstanding recommendations that haven't been dealt with in the past. And I would say the second key thing that I would highlight is just really the change in the tone that we are taking and the approach that we are taking as an organization with the Auditor General's office, and the attention that we are giving to it as the senior management team and throughout the organization. We are really have stepped up our level of commitment to dealing with the Auditor General's office and a more collaborative approach in the engagements that we've been having with them.
And Jen, is it fair to say that the contributions we've had from the Auditor General's audits have helped us to understand our business better, given us opportunities to identify continuous improvements, and that the interactions, because it is on this positive footing, allows us to improve what we do and how we do it?
I would completely say that that is the case. So to supplement what we've actually done in that area, we very recently brought on a new governance and controls area within the organization that will take the advice that we are getting, not only the advice that we're getting from the Auditor General's office, but having a very good look at ourselves and taking the opportunity to make sure that we have the right governance, controls, and processes in place to make sure that we are running ourselves in a very efficient and effective manner.
Is there anything specific on the audits that you want to bring to the board's attention?
I would just say we continue to make progress on all the recommendations. As Jennifer said, our focus is to actually close out more of the historical observations. There have been a number of, key recommendations implemented for the 2016 audit, which was on our traditional construction program. So a number of things to highlight include implementation of the pilot of our vendor performance management system, doing more on-site inspections within our contracting practices and on-site construction activities. Further to that, we've implemented a suite of policies and procedures in our capital program to actually enhance oversight and governance.
Yeah, and I think it's fair to say to the board, the 2016 audit in particular, which we have responded to in a public forum with SCOPA, with a select committee, those specific recommendations. We have followed an implementation path with that. In our capital projects group, which Peter Zook heads up, we have implemented significant changes in methodology ranging from monthly governance and control over the project program through to the application of vendor performance management, through to the particular issue that was raised in that instance was about design consultants and how these are held to account if designs do not meet the requirements. There has been a thorough program to get these particular areas of the business into the shape that we are satisfied with, that is under control. As we've testified in in public session on the scope commentary, those action plans we followed up and continue to work with the Auditor General on the extent of those implementations and whether it meets the intent of the audit at the time. So I think just want to give the board a sense that the progress has been very positive, and very definitely we are now into that mode where we should be with audits, and that it's an audit's an opportunity for someone else to take a view on what activities you're busy with and what are the opportunities for improvement, and that is where we are.
Would maybe make one supplemental point to that, just so that when you're reviewing the report and you look at the status of our 2016 recommendations, and we're telling you all the things that we're doing to address those recommendations, and then you look at the status, you'll see that there are a number that are fully implemented, there are a number that are in progress, and there are some that we have agreed with the Auditor General's Office we won't implement. The items that we've agreed we won't implement are because the recommendation isn't written in a way that that's the way we're going to implement the recommendation. It doesn't mean we're not going to take action to address the issue that's been identified. But just to clarify a little bit, when you see in progress, I think from an audit standard, what the Auditor General's Office is looking at, and when we do our self-assessment, we really have to take this into consideration, is that to be considered fully implemented, it's not like I've done a policy. It's I've done a policy and I've seen you implement it and I know you're following it. So there's a bit of a lag time before you can self-assess as fully implemented. So I want to make sure that the impression that the board has when you see the in progress, it is really because the time lags between when you've implemented something and when you can see the result of the implementation. And so I think that that's just one of the key things to make sure that you realize the demonstratable progress that goes with being classified as in progress.
How broad could that time frame be from the auditor's perspective?
So generally speaking, the Auditor General's Office wants you to have been doing it for about a year before they declare that you have fully implemented. So when you see the fully implemented items, they're more the quick wins, the things that we did very early on in the implementation process of the recommendations from 2016. And a lot of the things that are in progress, we've made a lot of progress on and we've implemented something, but we need a little bit of time from an Auditor General's perspective to declare victory on implementation.
A classic example would be the very strong recommendation, an appropriate recommendation the Auditor General made with regard to what sanctions are we taking when design consultants have not delivered on the specification. We can only demonstrate proof that we're dealing with it through the control processes that we've now implemented every month in the control and review process that we've implemented in the capital projects group when we have an occurrence. Yeah, and so the evidence can only be really manifested at the point where we actually deal with that issue again. And if I can say this again, what's positive about these interactions with the Auditor General to date is that when we position the responses like that, we've had a very receptive approach, very pragmatic approach.
Okay, anybody else have any other questions? Okay, thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
So next I'm going to hand it over to Marianne McKenna to give us a report on from the Customer Experience Committee, which she chairs.
Thank you, Don. The first item to report on is the Customer Experience Advisory Committee, which Carl Zaire chairs, and it is an opportunity to meet with real customers on a real-time basis and have their comments. And I think this has been very effective. He hears detailed issues, wayfinding issues around quiet cars, and the disruption of maybe multiple announcements. And we're able to get feedback through this committee to directly on customer experience and customer satisfaction. second aspect was putting the customer first. This, I think we've heard some of this from marketing, but the marketing division is identifying needs beyond commuting by using trip purposes. So that's allowed, I think, some new approach to having trains go one way, delivering customers on a regular commute, but also being able to come back because they're coming back for maybe a cultural event or some other kind of event during the day. So it's an expanded utilization of the equipment that is existing equipment.
It's also very helpful, and this is such a great and such a simple innovation that Mark has brought to the marketing team. It's such a tool to help to just understand the market segments that we work with as well. In addition to those points that you have raised there, Marianne, I had a sense that for a long time we have looked at our market segment in perhaps too narrow a definition, and it was very much the commuter definition. So by having the 7 sets of trip purposes, it just broadens our total approach. Plus, it starts to make it much richer in terms of identifying complementary products that you can associate. What is the complementary product that you want for off-peak? Well, it's you want a reduced fare in off-peak. That's a complementary feature. You want off-peak travel to be incentivized with an associated perk for going to the ROM, for example, or going to a big event at exhibitions. So this is the type of thing that we now have with this richness of understanding trip purposes. And I'm very confident that we will build our ridership in the off-peak based on this approach.
Thanks, Phil. We've heard a little bit about customer satisfaction as it relates to all of the Go, Up, and Presto, and I think the opportunities to improve these statistics is what marketing and our voice of the customer are looking most particularly at. So I think, we have very, very detailed reporting that's coming through, and I think we've had a little bit of the highlights at this meeting, but I think it's very encouraging to our committee to have that focus on customer experience. So in summary, we're listening. The Voice of the Customer program provides the facts and insights that drive these improvements. I think these insights are very important, and I think the emphasis at this meeting has been on taking action on what we're learning. So it's the brain expanding to absorb the information that's there, and then our ability to be nimble, responsive, and actually change. And I think that's an exciting part. We've had some initiatives that have moved through in the years that I've been on the board, and now I think always wanting to assess what's happened and actually expand and go beyond. I think this is really an initiative that can't sit on its laurels. The world is changing around us, and I think our ability to be nimble is a very important part of our committee's discussion. And finally, my favorite topic, as everyone knows, is design excellence. So I think I'm very satisfied with the expansion. As Phil says, we're never done, but I think we've actually got a platform for design excellence that begins to penetrate every aspect of this business, and it is an important aspect. So we're seeing it as a resource for the system-wide initiatives. We're seeing design standards come into the urban standards as we look at different ways of building out the stations. Universal design is also, has to be critically as important as safety, or second to safety is actually the universal access, which I think, we need, again, to be innovative. We don't stand on benchmarks that we've had in the past, but actually looking for the appropriate ways to move people through the system. And sustainability. This is a challenge, I think, to our world and to every aspect of this business and all of our businesses. So I think I feel as though that there is real progress. Station design standards are being set and will be, again, our ability to manage those standards through the different implementation strategies is the most important thing, and I feel, again, with the development, a new VP in design excellence and a kind of broadening of the team there across other sectors will allow us to actually implement these standards. So the 3 concepts that are, in a way, new re-articulated connecting, the very large importance of connecting people in communities, compressing to build only the essentials. I think as we look back on past initiatives, we may see how can we be smarter, how can we build smaller, tighter, and how can we integrate into other developments that are going on, and looking forward, anticipating stations that work not just for now, but are kind of our future legacy, which is why design excellence is important, that whatever we build at this time with our taxpayers' funds has to be beautiful, and it has to be, we've said delight, I think it has to be, give delight and be highly functional. Well, thank you.
Questions? Anybody have any questions? Marianne?
Just a quick comment.
Please.
Thanks to your leadership, this has come so far over the past couple of years. It's amazing.
I have to tell you, I'm just that wah, wah, wah. I have to thank Phil. Yeah, I know, but it's like I was kind of beginning to wear out my bristles. But I would say thanks to Phil and Leslie and the VP team, I think we are really making progress. And so I can a little bit less wah, 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 and maybe I can leave in good grace.
I think at the beginning we were intrigued to know what does it mean to build customer or design excellence into things like this. To see that evolve over time, it's been really great.
It's very gratifying. Okay.
It is, and I echo Rachel's compliments.
Thank you.
I think if it wasn't for the continuous and consistent challenge, the organization would not have learned how to incorporate it in its structure, because it is challenging to exercise control over design when your procurement method is as the AFP and P3 procurement models are structured, which gives lots of autonomy to project code, and to establish a structure and a method to make sure that the design excellence objectives are still met without prescribing and limiting the flexibility of project code becomes a challenge. It's like a square in a round square peg in a round hole. So I think the progress we've made there, and it is largely thanks to your continuous persistence with us, and we appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
No more questions on this issue? Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Marianne. So the next reports, of which there are 6, are normally taken as read. But if anyone has anything to highlight or questions, please ask them now. So,
I had one question. There's lots of stuff in the reports, a really good one. It's actually for you, Annalise, and it has to do with the TTC. So we know the TTC now has got the 2-hour transfer window in there, which I think is great. We know that Presto is enabling that, so more people can take advantage of it. What I'm having trouble processing is, what's the impact of that on not only Presto and Presto revenue, but on Go? Like, how do we start to understand what this little shift, which could be a fairly big shift over at TTC, what its impact is on us?
Yeah, so let's say Mark and his team are tracking, we track the actual transactional data all the time, but we're starting to try and do some more interesting analytics to parse out what's really happening. The 2 things that we can anticipate are that the growth of ridership in the TTC overall is going to make it hard for us to really understand specific changes in customer behavior and ridership behavior. What we normally anticipate, however, is if with things like 2-hour transfer coming in, that riders who normally would have bought a monthly pass will now move to doing pay-as-you-go because they're not forced to pre-plan as much as they would have in the past. And so we anticipate that there could be a drop in overall expected revenue as folks move from having pre-bought quite costly monthly passes to moving to pay-as-you-go, and therefore, if you're sick for a week, you don't ride, well, we would have captured that revenue otherwise. So that's one on the move just from pre-planning to pay-as-you-go. The second is with respect to the free transfers between the agencies. Yeah, obviously that impacts Presto's revenue from a commission perspective. Our hope, and of course the overall public good mandate, is that increases total ridership and that you have more people riding in both the TTC Uniquely and the Go Uniquely systems, who are now taking advantage of the interagency transfers. And again, we do track the transfers, and we see where people are taking advantage. And so we'll have to try and see, as the overall TTC adoption grows anyway, if we can actually see the changes of behavior. And in particular in locations such as Danforth Station and Mimico, where you do have close intersections, and of course Union Station, and we will try and get, as we go further and further, better analytics to actually see the changes of behavior.
Quick follow-up then?
Sure.
Speaking on behalf of myself, I would benefit at least for, as you learn more about what's actually happening, to bring that back.
Sure.
So we can understand what the narrative and what the impact is. And where I'm going with that is, at some point, I would gather, and it might not be in the next 5 years, it could be in the next 20 years for that matter, through fare and service integration, there are going to be other municipal transit agencies that might also do a 2-hour, or they may do some equivalent.
So if I could clarify, TTC was the only transit agency who didn't have the free transfer.
For the 2-hour?
Yeah,
Correct.
everybody else had
All
it.
of the municipal transit agencies already on Presto otherwise already had it, and Go has an equivalent 3-hour window, albeit in a fare by distance format. So actually the others all have it, and interestingly there are free transfers between most of the 905 municipalities. So folks who get on, for instance in Hamilton, can ride into Burlington for free and not have to pay any more fare, let alone a discounted second fare.
So maybe just narrow it into what the TTC impact would be.
And this is very much part of the bigger fare integration discussion.
Yeah.
And then the moment that you're into that area of fare integration, then the cumulative benefit from fare integration on ridership and Presto being an enabler for that becomes part of the benefits portfolio that must be associated with Presto. And while we, as an organization, fully understand the cost of establishing Presto, the discussion probably needs to shift very definitively towards talking about the benefits. And in time, the benefits add up as your adoption rate grows, and that's why one of our 6 performance indicators for the organization is to track how we increase adoption, especially at this stage of the process when TTC is ramping up so significantly.
Any other board members have a question? Yes, Kathy.
Yeah, just on the, Annalise, on the reference to the student work that you were doing within Hamilton, et cetera, are you anticipating, or would you like to see that this become a more broadly based program? I mean, it seems to make a lot of sense for kids, right? For students.
Yeah, so there's so I parse them out into 2 categories. One is secondary and so up to grade 12 students and working with the various school boards. The second is post-secondary, and many universities, like in McMaster, have programs where all the cohorts basically pay for transit as part of their student fees. That's on offer to all of our transit agency partners already, but that of course requires the transit agencies to have partnerships with the post-secondary institutions. So it's a bit of a 3-way agreement. The infrastructure's there. We really are in the first phases of making sure that from an operational perspective, the administration for the universities and colleges is as simple as possible, so that it's not a burden to offer this to their students, that it's actually something that they can do easily.
Good stuff. Okay.
Any other questions?
Can I suggest, Greg, do you just want to give the board a quick update on the shadow running this week?
Absolutely.
And last week?
We've, as the board understands, we have a large injection of service that is very close to the front of the pipeline. We chose to, this is only the second time we've done this, to do a shadow service to test the impact of that new service on the baseline service that we have. This today brings the end of the 2nd week. It's being extremely positive, and the overall 94% range on-time performance for those midweek trains. So there, in due course, there'll be an announcement to reflect that. But melding that service into the baseline service is not simple, and then melding that into the extremely robust construction program we have, again, isn't easy. But to support that, we have really upped our game in terms of what we call quarter access, which is optimizing track capacity, making sure we do safe handoffs between construction and operations. I think we have more room, but we certainly made some good progress forward on that. But yeah, the shuttle operation is done well, and that's to the efforts of a vast number of people in the organization. It's absolutely a team effort to get a win like that. So fingers crossed. That's great.
Anything else that we should bring forward here?
I just want to reinforce under your sustainability section that, you know, commitment to sustainability saves money. And if we would only see the economic value, we'd have this we, they. So, you know, my hat's off to you for being able to articulate that this is really a fundamental business benefit outcome, your commitment to your sustainability initiatives.
I'll give you a little insight in that. Yeah. We've really pushed forward on what we call throttle control and anti-idling for both rail and bus. Together, they represent a cost reduction of more than $10 million per year.
Yeah, I mean, it's
And you can
terrific.
top that up with the team is really working hard on energy management, and this is Leslie's and my team collaborating well together. And that will add in. That's a little more diffuse, so it's harder to measure. But the absolute fuel savings, that's one of our largest cost drivers, and we've made significant gains on that.
Okay, anything else? Anybody? Okay, so I guess we'll bring the public portion of our board meeting to a close. I thank everybody for attending, and have a good afternoon.